now I'm gonna make a lot of people mad, and it's very controversial.
It's my favorite pastime. Artificial sweeteners are gonna cause you to be stupid. Shady supplement marketing tactics. Companies take these zombie supplements and resurrect them. Is the obsession with seed oil scientifically justified? Oh my God, here we go.
What is the biggest misconception that you can think of?
People confuse simplicity for ease. It's not the same thing.
What is the most overrated stuff?
Most overrated stuff. It's like biohacking stuff.
Yes, that you've seen.
Oh man, God, how much time do you got?
This next conversation is with Layne Norton, a PhD in nutritional science and also a world champion powerlifter. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. And also, if you have some suggestion on who you would like me to interview, let us know in the comment section or send us an email. I was a little bit concerned this morning coming and joining you to the gym because I knew you were going to put me through a powerlifting workout, and my back was a little bit stiff. But now that we're done working out, I feel much better. It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you can, the research on like pain management and injuries and whatnot kind of shows that if you got something bothering you, total rest is actually not the best thing you can do. The best thing you can do is to actually load the area a little bit to a level that you can kind of feel it, but it's not making it worse. And if you're able to do that, kind of get through it, you usually feel better afterwards. And yeah, I mean, I felt very confident that we were going to get you to hit a number you'd be happy with, and not with a lot of pain, because movement is medicine, motion is lotion, and you are better off doing something versus nothing. So in the case of today, like you were saying, your back felt a little, you know, but we got warmed up, we got going, you felt good enough.
What is the biggest difference between training for having a good appearance, a bodybuilder, versus training to be strong?
If you look at what grows muscle, you can grow muscle the same with heavy weights and low reps or light weights and high reps. As long as you get the same approximate intensity, meaning how close you go to failure.
Really?
So yeah, so if you match the number of what we call hard sets, which is sets taken within a few reps of failure, high reps, low reps, doesn't seem to matter. Grows the same amount of muscle. Now you'll get stronger doing the low reps. There will be a difference there. And so what that says is, like, you know, I'm actually in the process of writing my first book, and this is a large portion of it, is talking about how to build muscle. And a big part of it is basically saying it really boils down to, you have to do the intensity is the drug, the volume in terms of the number of hard sets you do, that's the dosage, right? So really, to build muscle and to continue to build muscle over time, you're going to have to do more and more hard sets as your body adapts to push it into further adaptation. I mean, you probably know this with fighting. If you start doing a new skill, the first 6 months, it's like you are rapidly progressing, right?
Then you hit a plateau.
You hit that plateau, and now it takes a disproportionate amount of training intensity and volume to get just a little bit more, right?
And by the way, sorry to interrupt, is it the same thing that might be, because you just introduced me to powerlifting, and I've never done it before. If I start doing it like maybe once or twice a week, would I have a good progression in the beginning?
Absolutely. Like,
really? Even at 44 years old?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the research actually shows, as a percentage of your starting strength and starting lean mass, people over the age of 40 or under the age of 40, they build the same relative amount of muscle when they start lifting.
Really?
Yep. Even up to like 60, 70. Like women and men too. So as a percentage of their starting lean mass, women and men build the same amount of muscle. Now that means, like, if we start and you're, say, 70 kilos of lean mass and a female is 50 kilos, if you add 10%, you've added 7 kilos, she's added 5. So on an absolute basis, you've added more lean mass. But as a percentage of your starting, it's the same. And so same thing, the physiology, I'm not saying men and women are the same or old and young are the same. There are differences. But if you get the right training dosage, you build muscle similarly.
Wow, that's interesting.
And even like you are never too old to build muscle. Like there's actually studies in frail 90-plus-year-old elderly.
No way.
Where I'm dead serious.
90-plus-year-old.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They start lifting weights and they build lean mass and they get noticeably stronger. I mean, they had a study where they started with frail elderly who could barely sit down to a chair and stand back up. And by the time at the end of the 12 weeks, they were actually lifting with some weights. They show that there really aren't non-responders to resistance training. If you have bad genetics and you don't respond as well as somebody with good, you can still grow a similar amount of muscle, but you'll need more hard sets. So you have to up the dosage essentially, right? So when we look at studies of volume, I mean, they've gone as high as like, specifically in like the triceps, as high as like 30 plus sets a week and still seen that it doesn't cap out the growth response. But what I will say is the reason I recommend doing the minimum effective volume is because it just becomes unmanageable at a certain point to do 30 hard sets for every single body part every week. Like it's just a ton of volume.
Yeah, you want to manage your time, right? You want to put to have the best result with the smallest amount of time as possible.
And just to be fair, I mean, you can build a lot of muscle just doing 5-10 sets a week for a body part. Like you can build a lot of muscle. And the most important thing is getting close to failure. If you're not training hard, you can add a bunch of junk volume and it's not going to make a difference. You got to train hard. Now, strength is slightly different if you're trying to be as strong as possible, because strength is an expression of force. How much force can you produce? And there are subtle differences. Now, if you train like a bodybuilder, you can still get very strong. But training that close to failure, you're going to accumulate fatigue. So really strength works best when you are doing some heavy sets, kind of like how I did today. I did those heavy triples. Yeah. But then I backed off to a pretty light weight, right, for me. Yeah. Like around 60-70% of my 1 rep max. But I'm doing those reps as fast as possible. I'm doing multiple sets.
That's why you were doing it, right?
Yeah. And so then I'm still, by moving it as fast as possible, I'm producing a lot of force, but I'm not fatiguing myself like that heavy set does. Right? If I did a ton of heavy sets, I get really good at doing heavy weights, but eventually because the fatigue gets so high, it starts to impair my performance in subsequent sessions. So we were talking about this, when you're getting ready for a fight or a meet, you always have fitness and fatigue kind of fighting each other, right? Yeah. Like when you're in a training camp, you're deep into it, you've been sparring a lot. I mean, you're very sharp, right? Like your skills are very high, but you're very tired, right? And so the last week before a fight, what are you doing? You're resting, you're recuperating, you are trying to dissipate that fatigue while still keeping your skills. And my guess is you're still probably doing some light bag work. You're still probably doing some light cardio and whatnot, but you're trying to dissipate that fatigue so you can express your maximum fitness. And in powerlifting, your maximum fitness is how much weight can you put on the bar and move.
For longevity purpose, what would you say is best, powerlifting or bodybuilding?
Assuming drug-free?
Drug-free, of course.
Okay. Probably powerlifting. Only, and it's probably not a big difference either way. Okay. But if you look at the studies on the association of lean mass with longevity, strength actually has a stronger association with longevity than lean mass does.
Really?
So yeah, because
so it's more important to be strong than to have muscle.
It appears more important to be strong. Now, both. Like having more muscle mass improves your glucose metabolism, your metabolic health, like all those things improve. So it's still a good thing. But in terms of absolute longevity, strength tends to be a stronger predictor than muscle mass does.
I see that before you lift, you sort of
psych up.
And yeah, psych up, like, rah, like I want you to touch on that, why are you doing this?
Yeah, so in the research literature, it's referred to as arousal. So you want to be
arousal
state, right? And it's no different for fighting. Like you don't walk out to the octagon being calm, right? Like you have to raise. Actually, Matt Serra had one of the best lines about this. I'll never forget it. It was on The Ultimate Fighter, and I think it was. He hasn't had a good post career, but John Copenhaver was like getting sick over a bucket, and he's like, before the fight, he's like, I can't do this anymore, man. I hate how this feels. I hate how this feels. And Matt Serra looks at him and goes, what are you talking about, man? That's the feeling of being alive. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like when I played baseball in high school, I get up to bat and I'm just like, don't strike out, don't strike out. Or I'd get those butterflies. I'd be like, calm down, calm down. And I'm like, I've been looking at this all wrong.
Yeah.
This is good. I should have these butterflies.
Yeah.
This is good to have. And it's very interesting. If you look at the physiological state of arousal or excitement, there's almost no difference between that and anxiety. The difference is your perception, right? So if you're somebody, and I think you mentioned like you'd get really nervous before a fight, right?
I'm extremely uncomfortable.
So I'd be interested in your perspective on it, and if you got some like sports psychology to help you or whatever. But like I went from calm down, calm down, calm down to embracing that, being like, I mean, if you ask people backstage at the powerlifting meet, I'm like, I'm very friendly, but I'm fired up, right? I'm like, you know, I hit my last warm up. I'm like, it's on today, baby. You know, like I'm
trying to convince yourself.
I am getting up for it. I'm, you know, it's not life or death, but I'm convincing myself I will die in this squat rack. You know what I mean? You got to pull this weight off of me.
Yeah, I feel the same. I'm extremely uncomfortable, but I used, when I was young, I thought that the fear, the nerve would go away with experience, but I found out that it's the opposite, because when you're successful, every competition, every fight is bigger than the last one. So you get more nervous, more stress. And I realized that, man, I shouldn't be afraid to admit that I'm afraid, and I should not fight it, because you're fighting it. You
makes it worse.
Yeah, you just embrace it, like accept it. It's normal.
And that's the rub, right? Like if it didn't evoke that in you, then when you did the thing, it would not feel nearly as rewarding.
Yeah.
Right. And I was watching some old like UFC documentaries and in preparation for this. And there was a great line from Randy Couture and Rashad Evans. So Rashad was fighting Chuck Liddell, and he went to Randy's hotel room, and he's like, man, I am so nervous. Because that's back when, you know, Chuck had only had that one loss to Rampage. And Rampage, if Rampage catches you, he'll knock anybody out.
I train with Rashad Evans. He's a good friend of mine for that fight. Yeah.
Yep. And so Rashad tells Randy, he's like, man, I am scared as hell. Like, I'm freaking out. Because Chuck was a killer back in the day, man. And Randy goes, I think, I'm paraphrasing, but he goes, just make peace with both outcomes. Just make peace with it.
Yeah.
Like imagine both things happening.
Yeah.
Both things could happen. And either way, you'll be at peace with it.
And whether you want it or not, it's not always the best fighter that wins the fight. It's the fighter that fight the best the night of the fight. So it's same thing in baseball, hockey, basketball. So you go there, you do the best you can.
That's why they play.
Just don't fight it. Let it go.
That's why they play the game.
Exactly.
Right?
Otherwise, it would be boring. We would always know who will win, right?
Right. I mean, I told you this when I won my national titles. Most of those meets, I was not the strongest guy at. There were guys there like if you gave them unlimited attempts, because in powerlifting, so when you do your attempts, you get 3 attempts.
Yeah.
But once you load a weight, you can never go back down. You can only go up. Okay. You can take the same weight over if you miss, but you can't go back down.
Okay.
Right. So attempt selection becomes very important. There's a whole science behind attempt selection and how you do it.
It's very psychological too, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, like
affect your confidence. If you miss, you're like screwed up, right?
Absolutely. So I've had it. You know, your opening lift. A lot of guys try to come out too heavy, and I'm going to quote Matt Gary here. I was at a seminar and Matt said, "What is the goal of powerlifting?" And everybody's looking around like, "What?" He goes, "The goal is to win. How do you win? Have the biggest total. What's the best way to get the biggest total? Hit as many lifts as you possibly can, because you do not get credit for the lifts that you load and miss." He said the best lifters in the world on average hit 7.5 out of 9 attempts on average. So you'd have people that would go into meets and it'd be like, well, load up my PR because I got 3 chances to hit it. Right. And then they end up getting nothing, or they get only 1 lift in. Right. And he's like, you know, and learning to take what was there on the day. You know, I've had meets where I've gone in and like one lift's clicking, but the others aren't, right? But I still was able to win because I didn't get greedy. It was like, okay, you know, bench press, like at Worlds in 2015, my squat on fire, gold medal, squat world record. Got to bench press, and I'm like 5 kilos under what I'm usually doing.
Yeah.
And we could have tried to eke it out, and I would have missed, right? And I'd have been stuck with a lighter weight. But we just, for my 3rd attempt, we just went up 2.5 kilos because that was all I had. I got it. But hey, that 2.5 kilos mattered when it came down to getting the silver medal overall. And then for deadlift, my deadlift was good. But I was able to, you know, a lot of guys get solely focused on, I got a PR every lift. And it's like, that rarely happens.
Is it like, in mixed martial art and combat sport, you have guys that are very good in the gym, but when it's time to perform under the light, they crumble. They just can't pull the trigger. Is it the same thing in powerlifting?
Absolutely, especially with some of the young guys who are like used to hitting really big numbers in the gym, and it's a different.
That's crazy because I would think that there would not be any difference because it's just lifting in a straight line, but
pressure makes a difference.
Yeah, it showcases the importance of the preparation and the mental game, right?
And the other thing is too, when you're in the gym, you're used to going at your pace, you're using your equipment, you're in your environment, you got your music on, and when you're out of meet, I mean, like I'm always like, okay, I'm 5 out. Now I'm going to start putting my music up. I'm going to start okay, I'm 3 out. Now I'm going to start getting my belt on. Okay, next lifter before me, I got my wrist wraps on. And now like when that lifter's up there, it's like, we're going max. Like I want blood and guts. Like I've got everything going on inside my head, right? But I'm timing that because I've got it. But I've had it where 2 lifters out, somebody gets injured. And now there's like a 5-minute break, right? So it does change how things happen because, and also you want to really fuck with your head, watch a lifter get injured right in front of you, right? So it does change how that stuff works. So yeah, you'll have people who do well in the gym, but then don't do very well on meet day. And I've even seen lifters who were consistently came up short and then they got some really good coaching and then went off and had phenomenal careers. I mean, the guy I was telling you about who, at the first nationals I did, his coach texted my coach and was like, Layne's totally in Bryce's head right now, right? Bryce went on to win multiple world championships,
One thing I used a lot in my career, and I mean, a lot of people don't really believe in it, but I want to know if it's something that you used or you've seen people using in powerlifting is visual imagery. Yeah. Like before a fight, I always make myself thinking about different scenarios that might occur in order to prepare myself. So when it happened in the fight, I feel it's not the first time that it actually happened.
It's exactly what you need to do.
And I always force myself to have a positive outcome. So let's say something negative pops in my head, I'm getting dropped. I cannot end my visualization session like that because it will leave a scar in my mind. I want to force myself to find out how I'm going to get back the upper hand, scramble back up and get control in the fight. And then I can go on with my day. Is it the same thing in powerlifting?
Yeah. I mean, I visualize like missing an attempt and then, okay, coming back and hitting my other ones, right? I visualize the wrong weight getting loaded and then them having to take a pause and it's interesting you talk about this. I read a book.
A lot of people roll their eyes because they think it's some sort of esoteric, but it actually works for me.
It works. There's actually a book out there called The Survivors Club, and it was about people who survive catastrophic events, like people who are in buildings in 9/11, people who have been in plane crashes, boats sinking, like all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And basically the book boiled it down to like it's 70% luck. Like if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, it's luck, right? But one of the things it talked about was the people who survived had tended to think about what if something bad happened to me? Because people think when like catastrophes happen, they think everybody's running around freaking out, and that's not what happens. People freeze. They freeze because they've never like if you're in a building and you see a plane coming directly, your brain literally shuts off because you can't process what's happening. Yeah. Right? But if you visualized something bad happening in your life, if you visualize terrible things, it won't be the first time your brain has had to make that connection.
Yeah, it will be faster to react, right?
So yeah, and that was the other thing the book said is basically the people who were more likely to survive those, when something happened, they took a moment to assess the situation, but then they made a decision and they committed to the decision and went for it. And in powerlifting, obviously way different than life and death, but one of the things I did when I competed in Worlds in 2015, it was in Finland, right? So time zone change, all that stuff. I got over there a week early, right? And I went to the meet for a couple days. I went to the meet for a couple days. I found out which lifting platform I was going to be on because there was like 3 different lifting platforms. And I waited until there was a break and I went out to the platform. I said, okay, where am I going to look when I get out here for my squat? Okay. Visualize, think about what I'm going to do, right? Did all that stuff. And then I also went and made sure, okay, all my family has got their passes. And actually there ended up being a screw up where it was good I went, because if I had tried to go like the day of and work this out where everything, and then I'm going to the warm-up room, I'm like, okay, where's the bathroom? Like just right down to little things, right?
Yeah, it's important. You're prepared. It's part of preparation.
I brought my own scale to make sure my body weight was on. And then when I landed, the first thing I did, got on my scale, saw what it was, went to the meat, found the meat scale, didn't change it and didn't go to the bathroom, didn't eat anything. Okay, my scale's a half kilo heavier. Perfect, right? So now I've done all these little things. And do all those things mean I'm going to win? No, they don't mean I'm going to win. But I've drastically improved my chances, because now little stuff that could have tripped me up, I'm not thinking about. I know exactly where everything is. I'm familiar with the situation. And then the 2 days before the meet, I didn't go anywhere close to the event, right? I just did some walks, stayed in my hotel room, and stayed focused, right?
I think you said that it might not help you to win, but it certainly helped you to not lose.
Exactly.
To be at your best. And that's what mattered the most.
And when you've put that much time in, that much training, like obviously we're not winning big money like you guys are and that sort of thing. But when you've put that much time, that much effort in, why would you not do the little things
100%
that could really make a difference?
I think people tend to focus on the big thing in terms of performance. And what really makes the difference is to focus on the little mundane thing that you do every day. That's where the big progression could be. I mean, it's not sexy. We talked about it before. It's not, people don't want to hear it. It's not sexy, but that's the truth,
Well, and
whether if it's in fighting or lifting.
Yeah. And Hollywood, they kind of make it where it's like, there's this big epiphany and something happens and it changes everything. And yeah, like you have those moments in sports, but those moments are only possible because somebody did a crap load of really boring, really repetitive stuff that probably felt like they were trudging through mud and not really getting anywhere, right? Mm-hmm.
I want to know for kids, is doing powerlifting can have a negative effect on their growth?
So that's one of the big myths that's out there. So there's actually no evidence that lifting and even lifting heavy weights negatively impacts kids' growth. In fact, the research shows that kids that lift weights have better metabolic health, have better cognitive function. They actually score better on tests, and they have better bone density and bone formation. So lifting is great for any age. Yeah. And if you think about, you're worried about loading up a kid. Well, they used to send kids out to the farm and work all day. Mm. They're doing loads all the time.
100%.
So this, I think it's
a misconception, because I'm sure a lot of people in the audience have heard this. Oh, don't lift. It's not good for your growth.
The human body is incredibly resilient. If you, in my book, I said, if the only people who really have an excuse not to lift weights is if you don't have a working spinal column. Mm. Other than that, you should be using some resistance training, because it's important for not just muscle and strength, but for bone too. It's very important. And metabolic health as well.
Is cardiovascular training can have a negative effect on your performance in powerlifting and vice versa? Because having a big engine burn more fuel, right?
When he says performance, I can't help but go, I'm not impressed with your performance. I can't help it. I'm sorry. No, so I actually just wrote about this in my book. So for the most part, for most people, the negative interference effect is relatively small. It's mostly a timing effect or just not getting enough overall recovery. Like if you're doing so much cardio that it's negatively impacting your overall recovery bucket, and like making you sore and whatnot, then it can negatively impact your lifting.
Okay.
Also, if you're doing it like very close proximity to your lifting, it may negatively impact it. But
you mean before you're lifting? If you would have done cardio before you're lifting?
Yeah. So before, it can impact the performance of lifting. Yeah. After, it can impact the signaling. So this study was in rodents, but they showed that like basically they resistance train rodents and then have them do cardio afterwards, and it dampened the increase in muscle protein synthesis from lifting.
Wow.
So that being said, would it carry over to humans? I will say rodent is a very good model for protein metabolism. Yeah. Most of the stuff we see in rodents does transfer to humans when it comes to protein metabolism. So what I tell people is like, listen, if you're going to do strength training and cardiovascular training, put them on separate days. If you can, right?
Yeah.
If you can't, try to separate them, do one in the morning, one in the afternoon, right? And if you can't do that, then I would say do your resistance training and then try to do like upper body resistance training, especially if you're going to do lower body cardio.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Because then you're not having that crossover signaling, right? And I think duration and modality of cardio probably matters too.
Yeah.
If you're doing a lot of running with a lot of eccentric kind of pounding, you know, that creates more muscle damage than like if you did like biking, which is concentric only, right? Like that's not going to cause you to be really sore.
Like short sprints
will make you sore,
make
right?
you sore.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a problem that the industry funded study? Do you think it's a problem that there's so many studies that are made in order to promote a certain product, but are not really well done?
So yes, but here's what I'll tell you. So my research was all industry funded, okay? And like Dairy Council, Beef Association, and Egg Nutrition Board. Does that make it bad? Good? It's you have to get funding from somewhere, right? Like these studies are very expensive to run, and the people performing them, they've got to eat too, right? So they've got to have money to because how else are they going to get paid?
Absolutely.
So it is very difficult, but here's what I'll tell people. This is why consensus is so important, because the scientific method is perfect, but it's done by people who aren't, right? And so even anybody, we all have our own personal belief systems we've developed, especially with food, because we all eat, right? And so that's why replication is so important. That's what I really look for when I want to feel confident about an outcome. Okay. It's like, all right, is this effect consistent over various different labs over the course of time in different populations? Like I always say, like creatine monohydrate is the most tried and true best supplement, ergogenic supplement in the history of mankind, because we have thousands of research studies that generally across the board, some exceptions, but for the most part, 90+% of them show a very similar outcome. So yeah, you might have one or two studies here or there, right? I'll tell you this, whenever somebody says an outcome of a study that I'm surprised by, like the headline, when I go and read the actual paper, usually I can go, oh, okay, I see why they found what they found. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. When you can.
What are those warning signs that you see that when you see a study that it's not done? What are most of the time the warning sign that you?
So a lot of times they'll make a claim around a certain outcome, but then they won't actually measure the outcome. So for example, they might say something about, so let's take artificial sweeteners, for example, because that's a really good example of this. In the cohort studies where they track people over time, they show people who intake more artificial sweeteners have higher rates of obesity, higher rates of type 2 diabetes, and possibly a little bit elevated risk of cancer, right? Well, there's always the potential for what we call reverse causality. Are artificial sweeteners causing that, or are people with more unhealthy lifestyles more likely to choose artificial sweeteners? And if we go through and we actually look at the research literature, people who take in more artificial sweeteners actually eat more calories. They tend to be more obese to start with. And so they do the artificial sweetened beverages to try to lose weight. They attempt more weight loss attempts. They have a higher rate of type 2 diabetes because they're more likely to be obese to start with. So then if we look at the randomized control trials, we see the exact opposite. If you sub in artificially sweetened beverages for regular sugar beverages, very consistent. It's down to a study. They lose weight and get more insulin sensitive. So why the disagreement between the two studies? Well, in one, you do what's called randomization. And randomization is important because in the cohorts, again, we're not telling people to do anything, right? We're just tracking them. But if you and I go into a study and they say, George, you're taking artificial sweetened beverages. Layne, you're doing the sugar sweetened beverages, right? Now, if they're doing that for hundreds of people, yeah, you may have differences in baseline characteristics between individuals, but since you're randomizing them, you can assume that those differences in characteristics will be randomly distributed across the groups. And so if you have a difference it's most likely due to the treatment rather than some difference in baseline characteristics. Does that make sense? The biggest myth out there is that that the barrier to you becoming healthy, fit, and feeling good is some really complicated formula. It's not. Don't eat too much. Eat an appropriate amount of calories for your energy expenditure, whatever that is. Eat enough protein, eat enough fiber, train hard, preferably multiple times a week.
I wanna know, we talk about study, is there something that surprised you, a study that you were not expecting? Like something that sort of shift your paradigm. You had an idea about a misconception about something, you're like, holy shoot, that just proved it wrong.
So very rarely does one study completely shift how I feel about stuff because I want to see it repeated. You know what I mean? But there have been times where I very much changed my mind on certain things. You know, the one I use all the time is LDL cholesterol. I used to be very much, it doesn't matter. It's more about the HDL to LDL ratio. And then these really impressive studies coming out with Mendelian randomization. So we're talking about a randomized control trial.
Yeah.
Well, you can do that with genetics too, because when you're born, you get one allele from your mom and one allele from your dad, right? And those are assigned randomly, interestingly enough. Some people naturally secrete more or less LDL cholesterol, right? Now, what's difficult about looking at, say, LDL and heart disease is heart disease develops over decades, right? So even in a really good randomized control trial, if we do it 10 years, who knows what the diet was before? Who knows how much plaque they already had? There are some serious confounding variables here, but Mendelian randomization looks at lifelong exposure to something and then the risk of it, right? And it is random. So what's really cool is if you look at lifetime exposure to LDL cholesterol and the risk of heart disease, you can draw like a straight line through it. I mean, it is.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And what's really interesting.
And so even if your good cholesterol is high, it's
it's
still bad to have high bad cholesterol.
So it's very interesting with HDL. HDL is more of an indicator of metabolic health. But when they give drugs that raise HDL, or they have people who have genetic variants that cause them to secrete more HDL, it doesn't actually lower the risk of cardiovascular disease. Now, it's good to have higher HDL because it means you're more insulin sensitive. It means you have better metabolic health, which is good. But just raising HDL itself doesn't appear to be cardioprotective. Now, with LDL, what's really interesting.
I didn't know that. You just.
But I mean, I changed my mind on this like 5-6 years ago.
How long is been shown? This is it a recent?
Probably for one of the most impactful paper came out in I think 2012.
Oh wow!
Originally,
interesting.
And now we're talking about millions and millions of data points now. And what's really cool is regardless of the variant, so whether the variant affects the LDL receptor, meaning clearance, or LDL secretion, or the amount of cholesterol you absorb from your diet, regardless of the type of variant, it has the exact same effect on cardiovascular disease from the lowering. So for every 1 millimolar lowering of LDL over the course of a lifetime, which is about, I think like 38.7 milligrams per deciliter, 50 to 55% reduction in the risk of cardiovascular disease, right? For every 1 millimolar. And again, it doesn't matter how they get it lower, whatever the mechanism. So that's where I get like really confident in some data where it's like, okay, they did it all these different ways and it's still, not only is it consistent effect, it is a dose response effect, you know? So yeah, that was something I changed my mind on.
Yeah, you just blew my mind because I have sort of myself have a high bad cholesterol. But
yeah, me too.
I've been told, your good cholesterol is high as well, so you will negate it, but which is not the case, right?
Yeah, I mean, and
I could be more at risk.
Yeah, and it's important to, so I started taking a statin. So I was like 150 milligrams per deciliter of LDL cholesterol, and I started taking a mild statin, and it knocked it down to like 75. And I mean, here's what I want to impart, because some people will get this. They don't understand how risk works, right? You are probably overall very low risk because you're in really good shape. You have really good insulin sensitivity, I'm guessing, probably very low inflammation. So overall, your risk is low.
Yeah.
but it would be lower if your LDL was also lower.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not in the danger line, but I'm still higher than the average. You know,
Yeah.
when my blood work came up,
And a lot of it's genetics.
Okay.
A lot of it's genetics.
Okay.
You can, like, if you're eating high fiber, lower saturated fat.
a lot of maybe red meat. I eat a lot of red meat.
It's not.
No?
It's red meat only because if it's really fatty cuts of red meat, they can be high in saturated fat.
Okay.
And saturated fat will raise LDL cholesterol.
Okay.
But like I eat red meat pretty regularly, but I choose like leaner cuts like sirloin and that sort of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, like that's something I changed my mind on.
Huh.
So
it's very interesting. I want you to talk to me about the people who want to lose weight. You know, like the problem of obesity.
yeah.
Is it genetic? Is it the natural environment? Like, because there is people that claim, oh, it's a genetic problem. It's a gene. It's a gene problem.
Yeah. So it's both.
Okay.
But the genes that are affected are around appetite. So people who are more prone to obesity, they have lower sensitivity to satiety signals.
Okay.
So it doesn't regulate the same way. And they also get usually a bigger reward from food. Than
So
people who are
you
not
mean eating something with sugar would be more pleasurable for them than
Correct.
it would be. But how did they measure that? Because it's subjective, right? It's
Some of it's subjective, but then there are actually hormones you can measure. There's signaling in the brain you can measure to actually, like, fMRIs and whatnot. So you can look at kind of how the pleasure center lights up and those sorts of things.
so genetically, because they have more pleasure eating those sugar, and they don't have the fullness. They don't feel full as much as
Yeah, or even if they feel physically full, they can still have a compulsion to feel like they want to eat.
Wow, interesting.
And they also like more obese prone people. So you've probably met people, maybe you're one of these, like if you tend to eat too much, you can get like real sweaty and fidgety and like you almost like want to move because you've eaten too much,
Yeah.
right? That's a very distinct characteristic of what they call obese resistant individuals.
Okay.
So obese resistant individuals, when they overeat, they will tend to spontaneously just get more active without even realizing it, right? Whereas obese prone will tend to just be flat. They won't increase their activity naturally in response to overfeeding. So you've got appetite, you got energy expenditure working at both ends, right? And even with all that, it took the obesogenic environment we have now to really essentially set people up to where they became obese, right? Because our genetics didn't change that much in 75 years, right? But obesity is in the last 75 years, really. I mean, before that, it was less than 5% of the population.
Okay.
So what happened was you had hyperpalatable foods, but not just hyperpalatable, energy-dense foods. You could get them anywhere. This is the real key. Because 50s and 60s, we had ultra-processed hyperpalatable foods. You had cookies, cakes, all that kind of stuff. But if you wanted something like that, you were making it yourself or you were walking to the bakery to get it.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
Whereas now, I mean, you don't even have
More
to go to
accessible, right?
a gas station, wherever, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Or I'll just get on DoorDash and order whatever I want, right? You don't even have to leave your house. And we went from actual skill labor jobs to most people being in an office working on a computer. And all those factors coming together is what produced the obesity crisis, right? And so we're
bombarded. We're tempted to buy bad stuff.
And here's
to
the thing,
consume, right?
if you're less active, it actually dysregulates your appetite signaling. So exercise is actually one of the best things to improve your sensitivity to satiety signals. My PhD advisor, he had a great line. He said, genetics load the gun for obesity, but behavior and environment pull the trigger. And so what you're seeing now with these new obesity treatments is basically what they're doing is they're just the best appetite suppressants known to man. They've also, like a lot of people who I've talked to, they say calm the food noise down. My girl says this. She's a nurse practitioner and she works in medical weight loss. She said she even tried some of these GLP-1s. She's very in shape, but she did it for her blood sugar regulation because she tends to run a little bit high blood sugar, even being lean. And she said like, yeah, like it very much calmed down the food noise in my brain. And what's really interesting too is some of these GLP-1 mimetics, they're actually seeing benefits for like addiction. So it seems to like basically kind of, and I don't want to speak outside my area, but from preliminary reports, it seems like it kind of like helps with the impulse control center of your brain. You're not as impulsive, essentially. But, you know, I think these, you know, I kind of went into this like as a side note, but these basically make it so the obesogenic environment now doesn't have a hold on people, essentially.
I know now I'm going to make a lot of people mad, and it's very controversial.
It's my favorite pastime.
Vegan and carnivore.
It's really, we're having this argument with hardcore carnivores and hardcore vegans, right? So, I mean, again, I was sponsored by the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the Egg Nutrition Center, the National Dairy Council. If anybody has a bias towards high quality animal protein, it's me, right? But I would say most people could do with eating more plants. Now, and I did a video where I said, Layne, you got to pick one. You can only be vegan or carnivore. Which would you pick? And I would pick vegan, only from the perspective of
long term, right?
I can get enough protein in. I might have to supplement with shakes or whatever, but I can get enough protein in, and I want that fiber. I want that is very important, very consistently important for longevity. Now, people will do carnivore and they'll say, well, I felt better. Okay, well, if you lose 30, 40, 50 pounds, I have no doubt that you felt better, and you may actually, in fact, be healthier. But you could have done that while still getting some fiber or fruits and vegetables in it, right?
I think that, you know, my question is the best diet, right? The optimal diet would be a mix of both, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, I think, you know, so I'm going to touch two things. Yes, I think that like getting in some high quality animal protein, it's better amino acid composition. It's easier to get in that high quality protein. Like to be clear, you can have a diet that is still as anabolic as a diet with animal, that has animal protein in it.
Yeah.
It's just going to take a little bit more work.
Yeah.
Right. Now, yes. So there are benefits to including both.
Yeah.
And if you look at like what consistently is like one of the best diets for cardiovascular disease and cancer and mortality, is the Mediterranean diet, which is mostly, you know, lean proteins, a lot of fiber, legumes, you know, monounsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats, nuts, you know, those sorts of things. Now, with your ulcerative colitis specifically, one of the things that I think people conflate with carnivore when they do it and they say, I feel better, if they have gastrointestinal symptoms, carnivore basically is what's called an elimination diet, right? So you're taking out a lot of compounds that would be gut irritants. And when you're experiencing a ulcerative colitis flare-up, fiber is great, but it's not great when you're having a GI flare-up. It's going to aggravate it when you're having a flare-up.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will cut those fibers containing foods out.
Okay.
They feel better short term, but elimination diet, the point is to get your symptoms under control so that you can then add back in foods one by one and see what triggers those symptoms versus doesn't, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people think, oh, it was the actual carnivore component of what I was doing. And it's not that. It's just that you got your GI symptoms under control enough that now you don't feel so bad, right? Now, in terms of what did we evolve on, that one of the reasons that human beings have been successful is we are very adaptable to a wide variety of things. And if you look at the fossil record of humans, you'll find that basically people who lived close to the ocean consume more seafood. People who lived closer to like foraging areas consume more plants.
Like if you live in a ice age, like some of our ancestors, I'm sure they consume more.
And there's areas
more hunting.
And there's areas where they consumed more animal protein, right? And we can survive on any of them, and we can do well on many of them. And so if you look at our gastrointestinal tract, our teeth, we're set up to do both. We're set up to do both. We can do meat and we can do plants. And so I think a lot of the this or that is kind of like missing the point.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you can do both. Now, I want to say for my vegan friends out there, if you choose to not consume animal products because you just feel it's unethical and that's your value system, I could have a debate with you about why I may not align with that value system, but I get it. I do get it.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that to be, you know, within your value system, I think that's admirable. And you can do it in a very healthy way.
Yeah.
But again, like if we're just looking purely from a nutritional perspective,
Yeah.
You can include animal products and still have a very, very healthy diet. And you can include, and you should include quite a bit of plants in a healthy diet.
If you have to pick something that is the most nutrient dense, what would it be?
Depends on how we define nutrient density, right?
Interesting.
You know, because I hear that term get thrown around a lot, and I go, okay.
Hunter-gatherer style, you want to survive and feed your family, and you don't know when it's going to be your next meal.
Right.
Sort of.
So, I mean, really, again, nutrient density, we could say, is it vitamins and minerals? Is it energy density? Because energy, calories are nutrients, right? Like,
See. Okay,
it's kind of a nebulous term, right? People say that a lot, but I would say that, you know, the from a pure survival perspective, the most difficult nutrient to get is high quality protein. Okay. That's the most difficult one to get. So from a survival perspective, if you had to choose, you know, a bunch of plants over there versus like, okay, this woolly mammoth or whatever is freshly killed or whatever. I mean, you're going to choose the meat because it's more energy dense. There's more calories in it and there's more protein in it. But again, ideally you do both.
Absolutely. And there's a few years ago, there was a guy that came out with a diet according to your blood type. Oh. Is it true or is it, you know?
Complete bullshit.
Okay. I didn't know. I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, there's actually been a couple of systematic reviews that showed that like no difference.
It's been debunked.
Yeah, it's been debunked for a while now. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, if it has the insert whatever diet, it's probably bullshit.
The worst thing that people eat, that the average Joe eat, that you see all the time, what is it?
I mean, really,
that we should all stay away, but we feed our kids, we feed our, you know, like a grandma, grandpa, we all do, and you think it's wrong?
You know, I don't necessarily feel that way about any food necessarily.
Okay.
I will say like things high in trans fats, which have largely been out of the diet now. Trans fats have no redeeming qualities whatsoever. So hydrogenated oils and whatnot, like you stay away from those. But for the most part, those have been phased out of the diet.
Okay.
But in general, just like really processed, hyper palatable foods, you know, that are very, very high in calories. But even then, like, you know, this is where it gets hard from a government perspective, right? Because like, listen, I don't think it's a good idea to eat a lot of Oreos, but if tomorrow I couldn't have an Oreo, I'd be kind of pissed about it. You know what I mean? Like
for people that have kids, for example, before when they wake up in the morning and going to school, is it better for them to have a cereal or eggs, or because I see a lot of kids they eat very bad, right?
I mean, cereal gets a bad rap, but a lot of it's because of the type of cereals that people are eating. Like if you're doing like whole grain, actual cereal fiber, there's some pretty distinct health benefits to that. But I will say, like, I think it's important to get some high quality protein in the morning. Like when I have time, I'm usually cooking eggs for the kids, you know, and they love eggs. So, you know, some sort of high quality protein, or like my son really likes some of those like Greek yogurts. So I'll have him eat that, you know, I think it's important to start with protein. I don't think it's a bad thing to have carbs in the morning, but I just think, you know, if you have protein first, it kind of sets you up for the rest of the day because you're getting that dosing on muscle protein synthesis. And there's some evidence to show that it essentially helps you have kind of a more, my evidence-based people out there are going to cringe, so don't cringe me, but I love a little more even blood sugar throughout the day.
Okay. And how about supplement? I know it's a business, you know, it's a money-making machine for a lot of people, including myself. Yeah, 100%. But if you have to choose one supplement that for performance and for longevity.
Creatine monohydrate.
Really?
Creatine. Yeah. I mean, the cognitive benefits, the physical benefits, the strength benefits, it's very, very safe. I would choose, you know, whey protein, but like you can get enough protein through your diet. But it's really hard to get enough creatine through your diet, unless you're somebody who's a non-responder. You already got saturated levels of creatine in your muscle cells.
Okay.
But yeah, creatine monohydrate, just very, very safe, very, very effective. And yeah, that would be the one I would choose.
I wanna talk about life hacking. Life hack. Okay. What is the most overrated stuff?
Most overrated stuff. So like biohacking stuff?
Yes, that you've seen, that you've debunked many times.
Gosh, probably like alkaline water, stuff like that.
Really?
Know, like
It's not true? It doesn't work?
Nah, not really. I mean, the reality is your, like, everything that you consume passes through your stomach, which is like very concentrated hydrochloric acid. And then, like, by the time you can change the pH of your urine a little bit, but you're not going to change the pH of your blood. And you wouldn't want to. Like, just a small change in blood pH could kill you. So you don't really want to be able to change that stuff. So, like, my mom drinks the alkaline water just because she likes the taste. She likes it better. But yeah, there's not really any health benefits to it. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to hate me for that. Sorry.
I know you're not a big fan of ice bath.
Here we go. Here we go.
I'm a big fan, and you're not. I learned something from you that if you do an ice bath close or after your training, it can prevent you from developing muscle growth, right?
So it won't prevent you, but if you take two groups of people, they've done this where they resistance train and just do regular recovery like rest, or they have them do ice bath.
Yeah.
We called cold water immersion in the studies.
And then the ice bath was done after their training.
Yeah.
Okay.
The both groups will grow muscle, but the group getting the ice bath grows less muscle.
Sure.
And it appears to be a dampening of the cellular signaling for muscle protein synthesis. So part of what happens when you resistance train is you create that mechanical tension on the muscle, and that stimulates your muscle cells to start turning over these proteins, right? So they break down some old proteins, build up new ones, and when it builds back bigger, right?
And there's no data if it has the same effect if the ice bath is done the morning of the training.
That's what we don't know. We don't know if this is an effect that is, exclusive to just doing it right after your workout, or if you did it, like, let's say you did an ice bath in the morning and you trained in the afternoon, would still have the same effect. We don't know. Based on what I know about muscle growth, I'm kind of split. I could see a scenario where it doesn't affect it, and I could see a scenario where it still does.
Oh, wow.
So,
in a doubt, if your goal is to gain muscle mass, you better not stay away from that.
Well, again, I live in reality, which is if somebody really likes, like you said, you like to get up, do that, it just makes you feel good.
For therapeutical reason, it makes me feel good. I think it boosts my level of dopamine. I feel great, doing it. After I'm out, a few minutes after, I feel like I can go through a brick of wall.
Yeah, and so again, it's like if I tell you, well, you can't do that anymore, and you love doing it. Well, maybe you won't like resistance training as much now. It's you gotta live. I have to live in reality too.
About the contrast, the let's say a sauna or a jacuzzi, then you go in an ice bath. You do that at night before going to bed.
Yeah, it seems to help with sleep.
Okay.
And
there's data, or is it just subjective or
sauna for sure? Okay. But the cold allows you to tolerate the sauna for longer, right? So I will say, most of the benefits of cold plunge in terms of recovery, which are reducing inflammation, reducing soreness and whatnot, is actually similar benefits from sauna, except sauna doesn't negatively impact muscle growth. And the difference probably is there's a few modalities that have been shown to improve recovery and not negatively impact muscle growth. Like actually compression garments. So like compression leggings and shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
Those actually appear to decrease soreness and possibly lower inflammatory markers. And there's a few other things too, like electrical stim can do that. Walking even, hot baths, sauna. And what it seems to be the kind of consistent thing is they improve blood flow.
Really?
Right. So now with cold plunge, you're slowing down blood flow. Right. Okay. So that we don't know for sure, but I think that may be the difference between why, cold plunge does help with recovery, but it negatively impacts muscle, whereas these others don't.
I think a few years ago, a study came out where they were testing subject that had an injury, and I think the result of the study was saying that putting ice on an injury does not help. Have you heard of something?
Yeah. So
is it from Harvard, or it was like a big thing when it came out? I was surprised. What do you think of that?
Yeah. So the old kind of logic was, if you have an injury, you put ice on it.
Yeah.
I will say ice may help for like the pain, dampen the pain.
Okay.
But yeah, it may actually have a slightly negative effect on healing just because of the slowing of the removal of like metabolites and debris and whatnot. Because when you're freezing something, you're slowing things down, right? So, and it does, even though it reduces inflammation, here's the rub. Some inflammation is actually important. Some inflammation
it helps healing, right?
Yeah, is part of healing. And actually for muscle growth, inflammation appears to have a role in healing. Here's really interesting studies. They've done studies where they give like high dose like NSAIDs, like ibuprofen. And in young people, it impairs muscle growth. In old people, it enhances muscle growth. And that's...
sorry, I interrupt, but I need to pause. So for the older people,
Yeah.
the ibuprofen help hypertrophy.
Yep.
And for the young people, how young and how old?
Like 25 years old,
Wow.
and versus like 65. But if you look, elderly people have higher levels of baseline inflammation. Younger people have lower levels of baseline inflammation, which suggests there's like an optimal range of inflammation for muscle growth. And if you get too low, it's bad. And if you get too high, it's bad, right? So this is one of those things where people, when you think about something like inflammation, you think, oh, lower is better or more is worse. Not always, right? And so that's one of the things that I tell people, people want to think about like things in your body as like good, bad.
Yeah.
The reality is everything in there is in there for a reason.
Yeah.
It's only when systems become dysregulated that things can be problematic. So yeah, I find that research very interesting.
For we talk about the cold. Now let's talk about the heat. After lifting, going in the sauna.
Yeah.
Can it help hypertrophy and muscle growth?
I don't know if it's going to help it, but it's definitely not going to impede it.
Okay.
And it may help reduce soreness, and maybe it could enhance it because you're enhancing blood flow, you're raising skin temperature, so I could see a path where it might possibly help, but it certainly doesn't negatively impact it. So if you want to do that, because it does appear to help with soreness and inflammation and whatnot, then I think a sauna, if your goal is building muscle and you want kind of a recovery adjunct, like what I do is I don't have a sauna, but I'll just do a hot bath for like 10 minutes, and that appears to have similar effects.
And is a steam room or a hot bath has the same effect of the sauna? Yeah.
Yeah, I think for steam and sauna, you have to get the overall temperature higher than you do a hot bath.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, like the surface area that's in contact with your skin is much greater when it's water, right? So if you get that up to, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, what am I thinking about, like 40 degrees Celsius? I mean, the feel of what the warmth is going to be similar to being in a sauna that's, 160, 180 degrees. So yeah, it depends on the modality you're using, but yeah, they all seem to have a benefit for like blood flow and reducing soreness.
You touch on something that is very interesting to me. It's the compression. I didn't know that it was effective. So would you say like if you're a professional athlete and you take the plane traveling a lot, it would be good to put on compression suit?
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea. It's a small effect on recovery, but it does seem to be positive pretty consistently. But I will say like, just like leggings or tights or whatever, those are not necessarily compression. True compression clothing, I don't know if you've ever had like a real like compression, like they're very tight. Like
Astronaut sauce.
Yeah, they're not easy to get on, right?
For a long flight, it might not be the most comfortable thing.
Right. Like once I get them on, it's fine. They're comfortable once I get them on. But if you're just like putting on leggings to go work out, that's not necessarily the same thing as compression garments. But true compression garments, they do appear to help with kind of like circulation and possible recovery.
Nice. We touched on a lot of things. I want to know about your future project, your book, like what you're working on.
Yeah, so I don't know how much I can share about the book, but it's going to be about the health benefits of building muscle. It's going to be basically a step-by-step, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, you'll be able to get something out of this book. It's about the health benefits of building muscle, and just a systematic way of how to do it. Like what you need, training wise, nutrition wise, supplements, everything that has to do with building muscle is going to be put in there. I think last time I checked, we were almost done, and it's like 300 pages in a Google Doc and over 500 citations. So it's
Okay.
it's quite dense, but I'm very excited by it. But it probably won't be out here for another year or so because it takes time for things to go through. But I'm excited about it. It's been a fun project.
Nice. If you could go back in time and give an advice to a young self, what would you change? It's a tough one.
Just life in general, or
Yeah, and everything. A mistake that you've done, or
oh man, God, how much time do you got?
one big one.
I think I would tell myself to try to slow down a little bit.
Okay.
A lot of the way that I did and still do deal with stress or fear or anxiety or pain, emotional pain, is to just press forward to the next thing. Like I have made tons of mistakes in my life and business and training and all this kind of stuff. And the one thing that has kept me, I guess, being successful is I plow through pretty much everything, but that's had some negative consequences as well. And, if I could go back, I would just say, like, it's okay. You can slow down a little bit, like pick your spots. You don't have to do it all at once, and I think a lot of people,
You're driven by performance, maybe that's why,
yeah, well, it's not a difficult ideology to come up with, right? Like,
Absolutely.
got made fun of, told I was worthless. I'll show you, and then you go through achievement, and you realize that, that stuff helps with confidence and whatnot. But at the end of the day, if you don't deal with some of the underlying issues there, it will continue to rear its ugly head. And I've certainly had those sorts of things come up in my life. And, so yeah, I would tell myself to slow down and, not to not be driven, but just to pick your shots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do it all. You have to be honest with yourself about the bandwidth you have in your life. Right. And I think a lot of people, it's like, they want to be an athlete and a scholar and a parent.
They want everything.
And it's like, over the course of your life, you can get all those things, but you probably got to do them in different seasons.
Yeah.
Not necessarily anything even wrong with that. It's just, you have to be willing to acknowledge what the trade-off is,
You have
right?
to choose your battle, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think that they can, and I'm guilty of this, of thinking I'm Superman sometimes, and I can do it all, right?
Yeah.
And one of the goals I set for myself was say no 90% of the time now.
Yeah.
Say no 90% of the time now. Yeah. But it's hard because, and I'm sure you were this way, like, what makes you successful is at some point, you probably said yes to everything, right? Like, you want me to fight that guy? Sure. Like,
let's go.
Tell me when, right?
100%.
And then, that's a very difficult thing to shut off once it gets ingrained.
Yeah.
And it's still been a project for me.
Layne, man, thank you very much for showing me powerlifting today. It's something that I had never done, and I'm gonna start implement into my routine. You
love it.
You were an amazing teacher, and you made me fall in love with it. I've tried it only once, and you taught me a little trick that I think gonna make a huge difference in my training that I'm gonna start immediately implement in my routine. And man, thank you also for sharing all your knowledge with my audience. Man, you've been a very helpful person for me. I've learned a lot from you, even though you were not there in person, but I've been watching a lot of your stuff, and thank you for sharing your knowledge, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I just have one request.
Of course.
So when I retire from powerlifting and I want to start training jiu-jitsu, you come and teach me a little bit.
100%. It would be my pleasure.
I love it. Thanks, brother.
You don't need to wait to retire powerlifting. I can do it anytime. It would be my pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Thank you very much for watching. If you like our content, please hit the subscribe button or the like button. That stuff really helps us a bunch. Also, if you have some suggestion on who you would like me to meet or interview, let us know in the comment section or send us an email. Thank you and have a great day.